have a conversation with the people in the room. So, at the beginning of October 9, universities, public and private, received an invitation from the Trump administration to join a compact for academic excellence and higher education. It made access to federal funding conditional on the acceptance of government-prescribed institutional policies and practices. The compact demands institutional neutrality while also demanding affirmative representation of specific ideological viewpoints and punishing those the Trump administration disagrees with. It effectively ends academic freedom and free speech on college campuses. 7 of the 9 universities that were originally offered the compact have rejected it. Two weeks later, with no takers yet, the Trump administration opened up the compact to all other universities in the country. 3 universities have shown interest, while a growing number of university leaders and other institutions have rejected it. The American Association of University Professors responded swiftly to defend the tenets of academic freedom and free speech by issuing a strong statement critiquing the compact, to which a majority of the Big Ten AAUP chapter has signed on. Our chapter members voted 99% to support the statement. Thank you, folks. And at this point, over 60 chapters across the country, from private to public, from Massachusetts to Kansas to Arizona to Oregon, have signed the statement, joined by a growing group of student organizations, unions, faith groups like the Quakers, and Pan America is also a co-signatory of the statement against the compact. Herbert B. Wells once said, "A leader's role is to find talented people, support their work, and then get out of the way to let them succeed." We stand here as teachers and researchers who fully embrace the principle of leadership in higher education and call upon our colleagues, students, and citizens of Indiana to stand with us in committing to this successful vision, which has made IU the excellent institution of higher education it has become in the last 100 years. As such, Tuesday, we passed a resolution in the Bloomington Faculty Council that calls our upper administration to reject the compact and support commitment to academic freedom. A text of the resolution can be found on our chapter's website. Like a good leader, I want to get out of the way to make room for voices of those who make this place great, other faculty and students. The rest of our event will feature statements from those who embrace these values as those outlined above. These statements also speak to the ways in which the IU upper administration, the president, board of trustees, and on the IUB campus, the chancellor, have been working to meet the calls of the compact even before it became an open call. Their overcompliance and censoring actions are actively destroying IU, and we are here to say clearly, we reject this. So, I'm going to pass the mic. We don't have a mic. We were going to be outside with mics. To Russ Kiba, the co-founder and leader of the University Alliance for Racial Justice. Russ.
I'm also a member of the executive board of the Bloomington chapter of the AAUP, and as such, I'm not going to make a statement myself today, but I'm going to read the statement of the AAUP. And also, this past week, the Monroe County branch of the NAACP has also issued a statement condemning the closures of DEI programs here at IU. So I'll read both of those statements to you. First of all, the AAUP statement. The IUB AAUP is the organization representing all faculty at IU, strongly denounces the termination and erasure of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs currently occurring at Indiana University. Since first announced on May 22nd, all DEI offices at the university, the main offices for DEI have been closed, directors of DEI at a number of schools have been terminated, and staff at those offices fired. The administration has claimed that these actions were necessary in order to be, quote, fully compliant with state and federal laws and guidance regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion. Yet it's important to note that there are currently no such laws or guidance in effect at either the federal or state level. Although such laws have been introduced, the U.S. Congress has not passed any law regarding DEI. The most recent Indiana state law, SEA 289, originally banned DEI offices, but that provision was removed before its passage. Federal executive orders on DEI in education since January 20th have applied to K-12 education, not higher education, and state guidance from Governor Braun prohibiting DEI training in Indiana applied only to executive branch programs, of which higher education is not one. Despite the lack of a mandate for doing so, the Whitney administration has proceeded to close DEI programs at the university and school level and numerous offices within schools offering supports to students and faculty. Some staff and students have had their positions terminated, while other staff, students, and faculty have been reassigned to other programs. Official university websites have been scrubbed of any mention of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and schools and departments have been informed by the administration that they need to use a specific computer application to examine their websites for the use of those words and erase them. All of these efforts have proceeded under the cover of darkness. Repeated faculty and media requests for any information regarding the number of personnel and offices affected since May 22nd have gone unanswered. Prior to these attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion, IU was justifiably proud of its work in this area. The Office of the Vice President for DEI boasted a wide range of programs supporting marginalized students and faculty and first-generation college attenders. Until this year, the Whitney administration's $30 million initiative to diversify the faculty was rightly touted as one of IU's proudest recent accomplishments. As these programs rapidly disappear, what will happen to the students and faculty who have counted on such initiatives? Despite the threats to a pluralistic society with which this administration is over-complying, the IU chapter of the AAUP remains firmly committed to diversity, equity, inclusion, fairness, and non-discrimination at our university. In particular, we ask the administration to provide the campus community with information in 3 areas. 1, given that there is no federal or state law or guidance requiring these cuts, what is the rationale for the university's actions since May 22nd? 2, how many staff and students have been terminated or received reduction in force notices as a result of the DEI closures? And 3, what programs, initiatives, or services does the university intend to implement to replace those that were cut since May 22nd in order to maintain the vibrancy of IU's multicultural community and supports for those who need them? As I said, the Monroe County NAACP branch also issued a statement condemning the DEI closures. NAACP branch 3062 strongly condemns the recent takeover of the Indiana University Board of Trustees by Mike Braun and the systematic dismantling of diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts across the university. These actions are not only politically motivated, they are dangerous, regressive, and deeply harmful to communities of color. The removal of DEI initiatives sends a clear and chilling message that inclusion, safety, and belonging for marginalized students, faculty, and staff are no longer institutional priorities. At the same time, escalating threats to First Amendment rights, including the right to protest, raise serious concerns about civil liberties on campus. These moves have created an environment of fear and anxiety, particularly for Black, Brown, Indigenous, and Asian American individuals connected to the university. When people feel they must hide their identities or silence their voices to remain safe, we must all ask, whose university is this, and who is it for? We call on university leadership, elected officials, and community members to denounce these democratic overreaches. Second, reinstate and fund DEI work as central to higher education. And third, protect the rights to protest and free expression for all. We will not be silent as our rights and presence are erased. The future of Indiana University must reflect justice, equity, and inclusion for everyone. Both of those statements, I believe, can be found on the statement from the AAUP. AAUP can be found on the AAUP website, and the NAACP statement can be found on the Monroe County NAACP website. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Bryce Green, who today is representing the IU Divestment Coalition. Thanks, Bryce.
My name is Bryce Green. I am a PhD student here at Indiana University, and I also did my undergrad here. So for the better part of a decade, IU has been my home, which is why I care so much about how this university presents itself in the world and the fate of the people who actually make this university run. During undergrad, I helped co-found the Palestine Solidarity Committee, an organization committed to supporting Palestinian rights and ending American support for the apartheid state of Israel. Recently, at the beginning of this semester, the organization received a note from the university that the organization was to be put on cease and desist, which prevented it from conducting basically any activity, holding meetings, putting out statements, and recruiting new members. The stated justification for this has not been made clear to us. We were merely told that it was an investigation that into activities that posed a clear and present danger to the university and the safety of others, but we have not been accused of any specific activity. And as we stand here months later, we have yet to receive any communication for any specific activity that we're accused of. Now, this is unsurprising to anyone who's been following the university and its position towards Palestine and the people who speak out in favor of Palestine. We all remember what happened to Abdelkader Seno. We all remember what happened to the Samia Halabi exhibit. And of course, who could forget the massive display of violence that the university brought on students who were peacefully protesting in Dunn Meadow in the summer of last year, myself included. So this is deeply disturbing because as the death toll was mounting in the genocide in Palestine, as images of babies being murdered, of entire families being wiped off the map, as these images were coming across our screens and our phones, the Indiana University Foundation was actually investing directly into the state of Israel. They were buying Israeli bonds, which means that as Israel was committing its genocide, the university was actively lending it money. In addition to that, they were targeting and attacking the voices who criticized this. Now, this is obviously one of the most important issues of our time, one of the most horrific crimes of the 21st century, and our university is involved. But it isn't isolated. It's deeply connected to all the other issues that all of us are here to talk about. The same people who are supporting genocide in Palestine, who are making IU complicit in the genocide, are the same people who are cutting programs, are the same people who are turning this university into a real estate corporation, and the same people who are attacking aggressively the academic mission of this university. And so with that in mind, it's now more important than ever that coalitions like the ones we have today are active in fighting for making this university a place that represents the interests and the visions of the people who genuinely run this university. We have a chant, it's, who runs IU? It's we run IU. And that should be kept in mind because that's separate from what the administration seems to believe. All of the measures from Governor Braun to President Trump, they should be opposed vigorously. But the only way we're ever going to be able to do that is if we understand the ways in which our struggles are linked. And so we hope to continue to promote these coalitions and to promote our activity. And we urge everybody to go to iudivestnow.com, which is a website where you can look at what our campaign is, look at the ways in which IU is complicit, and lend your voice to the people who are fighting against this. And of course, join all these other organizations, pay attention to them, because this is the fight of our lifetime. It's the decision of whether or not we want our university to exist in the future. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ann Campbell, who's representing the Indiana Graduate Workers Coalition. Ann.
So my name is Ann Campbell, and I'm a PhD candidate in the History and Philosophy of Science and Medicine department. And I was very excited to come to IU 7 years ago, and now I cannot wait to leave. I'm an organizer with the Indiana Graduate Workers Coalition, and we are a labor union that fights for better working and living conditions for grad students here on campus, and that includes fighting for the quality of the institution where we've chosen to work and study. And the IU I applied to, the IU that was the very reason that I know that history and philosophy of science is a thing, is not the IU I will be graduating from. So the compact that we've been hearing about, it's dangerous, right? It's dangerous for any university to comply with, and it's one of the many things that would be dangerous for our university if our university were to comply, right? And this includes restrictions on DEI initiatives, SEA 202, the consolidation of degree programs under the state budget bill, and the general impetus towards a university which is not in line with its own mission, right? Not in line with the mission of the very people who make the university, such as we see in the goals of the 2030 strategic plan. So the administration is told to comply, or they will lose the things that make our university run. But such compliance is exactly how we lose the mission of the university and the things that make it run, right? And that's us. It's the students, the faculty, and staff of IU. And the fact of the matter is, the administration should be complying with us, okay? They should be meeting at the bargaining table, and this includes the very demand to bring us to the bargaining table. So the IGWC is demanding protections for our degree programs and guaranteed funding. Grad school is hard enough. We don't need to face unnecessary additional financial hardships, and we shouldn't have our careers and our passions swept away through elimination or watered down through consolidation, right? What we do as scholars, whether it's in the natural sciences, the social sciences, the fine arts, or the humanities, right? It's work. This is work. It demands real skill and expertise, intellectual, social, emotional, and yes, physical labor, right? And moreover, it is important and necessary work for the world. We all benefit from living in a world with scholars. We deserve proper compensation and job security. And we deserve for our careers to not be reduced to an extravagance, a non-necessity, or a glorified hobby. There is no doubt that what we all do is in fact productive. And I want to emphasize that, what we all do. So if you're a grad student, and you have not yet signed your union card, today is the day, okay? The value of your degree is at risk from the administration, but when we work together, it does not have to be, okay? We can only do this together. We protect each other, and I've seen it time and time again, the way graduate workers will run into the fire for each other, okay? Into the fire. And we'll keep doing that for as long as it takes. And if you have signed your card, come talk to me about how you can get more involved. Come organize with us for graduate workers and for our university, where you were chosen and chose to come work and study, only to be let down by the administration. But we won't let each other down, okay? And this isn't just for grad students. It is incumbent upon faculty to keep showing up, keep working together, and keep talking to each other. It's the only way we win, okay? You guys work, and you're no less at risk from anti-labor strategies, okay? Anti-intellectualism is anti-labor. And our staff, and I don't just mean staff with master's degrees that sit behind desks, staff are no less our colleagues as workers and as scholars, and are an essential part of the academic mission of the university staff. We all rely on your solidarity and return it in kind. And undergraduates, I know it can be hard to feel through comments on your term papers and cold calls in discussion sections, but your instructors, whether they are faculty, staff, or graduate students, are your colleagues and your comrades, okay? And we have a common fight against a common enemy. Don't let this university fail you. Find an organization, right? Find your cause, join us. Your work, your future, your scholarship relies on it. So to this end, members of all these groups on campus have formed the People's 2030 Project. It's a coalition of campus and community organizations, students of all types, faculty, staff, and community members who know that we are the true force behind IU. And we get more done when we stand together. So the People's 2030 Project asserts that IU is a workplace. IU is a school. IU is a site of research, a community, and IU is a public good. IU should be managed by this mission, not by the mission of a low labor cost, high margin business, right? We're not a damn store. And the decision-making at IU should come from those who run it, not from some suit with an adding machine, which, to be fair, is how stores should be run too. In the People's 2030 Project, we recognize that IU deserves protection. We deserve dignity. We deserve support. We deserve diversity, not just in who we are, but in what we study and what we teach. And we deserve collective input. So, folks who have an org, right? Folks that have a plan, the People's 2030 Project is here for you to come and join, and we'll all be stronger. Folks who don't know where to start, the People's 2030 Project is here for you to join. Find a plan, find your place, right? Come see how we can all join our forces and make this university ours again.
Thank you, Anne. We're joined by one more from the first part of the press conference. IU Student Government Representative Amit Mirzad.
Good morning, everyone. I'm not representing IU Student Government with this speech, but I am a member of student government, as well as the Indiana Student Government Coalition, which I'm the executive director of. But I speak to you today as an undergraduate concerned about the direction that this university is heading, and frankly, very afraid that IU may sign on to this Trump compact. I speak to you today as the son of an IU alumna who was drawn to this university because of its world-renowned language programs that are now being ripped away from our faculty and future students. I speak to you today as a student whose teachers are forced to work in a culture of fear of retribution, and a student of graduate workers who are underpaid, overworked, and exploited to bolster the bottom line for Witten and her bonuses. I speak to you today because I know that this university is worth fighting for, that you are worth fighting for. Now, despite how this administration makes it seem like higher education is all about job training, it's not. Now, they're doing a fantastic job leading by example and making IU all about the money. But that's not how it's supposed to be. As a freshman, I sometimes grew frustrated with the American higher education system requiring gen eds and other courses such as public speaking that seemed frivolous to me as a pre-med student. But now, studying political science as a pre-med student, I'm beyond grateful to have attended an institution that has the capability and drive to educate me not only in STEM, but also in the humanities and social sciences. I take a wide array of courses that have opened my eyes to the positive externalities of higher education. Externalities that foster free thinking, empathy, contributing to the democratic, inclusive, and innovative values held so near and dear to the heart of American society. It is with these values that higher education must persist. In these uncertain and trying times of rising authoritarianism, attacks on DEI, and the erosion of academic freedom and freedom of speech on college campuses, IU must reject the Trump compact. IU must stand for the real stakeholders of this university, the students, the faculty, and the staff, not the wealthy and well-connected donors and politicians. Because if we sign on to this compact, what is higher education all for? With an already extremely unattractive resume, boasting crackdowns on freedom of speech, over-compliance with the state government overreach, the evisceration of tenure, the starvation of graduate worker stipends, the complicity in the Israeli genocide in Gaza through the Crane deal and other partnerships, and somehow more, IU will only become a shell of its former self and will only be aiding and abetting the brain drain to come, damaging the education for millions of future Hoosiers who seek degrees from this world-renowned institution. If not for academic freedom, how do we continue to challenge society to grow and to learn? Alfred Kinsey wasn't a legendary pioneer because he submitted to the state when they tried to crack down on his research. He was one because he refused to. And in the same way, Herman B. Wells, He didn't turn IU into a world-class institution by bowing to political pressure. He did it by defending academic freedom, by protecting the arts, by standing up for students, and by believing that universities are places that must protect ideas, must be places where ideas are free. So now we ask ourselves, what will President Whitten do? What will the board do? Do we trust them to defend our academic freedom? Do we trust them to protect our faculty, our students, and our future? And if they won't, will we?
Thank you so much. We turn now to a specific case that kind of answers the question of who's going to stand up for academic freedom when our faculty is being treated in a disrespectful, abusive way by the upper administration. And so the next part of our event is going to feature Jessica Adams, our colleague, who will describe in greater detail than I could possibly describe her current situation. She's also joined by two of her students, Chelsea Idea Vallatoro, close enough, and Zach Harrison, who are going to come up here and give us the full kind of picture of what Professor Adams is going through. And we will save some time at the end for questions and comments from the audience. And I just want to point out that Jessica's students showed up early with cupcakes and a balloon, which tells you how much they love her.
Hey everybody. My name is Dr. Joseph Varga. I'm an associate professor of our soon-to-be shuttered labor studies program, which was founded by Herman Wells and is being closed by Mike Braun, so it gives you any idea of what's been going on here. I just want to read a brief statement supporting Jessica. I am a longtime member of the AAUP. I've served in many capacities with the chapter. I'm an elected representative in the Bloomington Faculty Council. I'm also the chair of the Faculty Senate in the School of Social Work where Jessica teaches. But I'm also speaking today just as my capacity as an individual faculty member here at Indiana University. And what I wanted to do is just read a brief statement connecting Jessica's case to these larger issues that we're facing here on campus. So, due process, the right to defend oneself against charges, is a crucial aspect of American justice, a cornerstone of functioning democracy, and is deeply embedded in American culture and society. The basic rights to hear the charges, to retain counsel, to face your accuser in an open and fair process, to participate as an equal partner in the quest for justice, to be shielded from self-incrimination, and to be privy to any and all information gathered is the basic right of every citizen in our system of justice. In the SEA 202 case against Jessica Adams, and in the previous case against my colleague Ben Robinson, Indiana University and the IU Board of Trustees have openly and egregiously violated these basic rights so dear to all citizens. At no point in the procedure, which began on September 24th, 2025, has Jessica been afforded any of the above listed rights. The charges were never made clear, the right to counsel denied without citing policy, no access to the complainant, no right to participate in evidence gathering, no access to evidence gathered, and no right to avoid self-incrimination. SEA 202 charges of academic misconduct are not internal matters of Indiana University. Rather, they are based on state law and as such require due process. The procedures adopted by both Indiana University Indianapolis and Indiana University Bloomington provide no due process rights for employees of the university to defend themselves against SEA 202 charges. These procedures instead establish IU administration as the sole body directing the entire process, setting the university administration as judge, jury, and executioner in both substantive and normative violation of our system of justice. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Jessica Adams, and I am a lecturer with the IU School of Social Work. And The simplest version of my story is that I was removed from my classroom for teaching about white supremacy. I will try my best to expand on that as I share some of my grievances about the way this situation has been handled. After the initial complaint was lodged, which it was lodged by a student to Jim Banks's office, I was asked to meet with the deans of my school. I assumed that this was an informal meeting to have a discussion about the complaint lodged against me. Little did I know that that meeting was used as evidence gathering, and the materials that I very willingly offered up would be used against me later on. So that was the first, I think, very egregious thing that happened. The complaint against me also, I feel, should have been found to be without merit, as I was teaching within my discipline and within the scope of the course that I had been asked to teach. I was asked to teach on structural racism, and as you teach on structural racism in the United States, you cannot not discuss white supremacy, as it is the ideology that emboldens racist behavior. Even though a student was the original complainant outside of IU systems, my dean then turned around and made herself the primary complainant in my case within the IU system, citing that I had presented biased evidence as fact, or biased information as fact. So not only did she become the primary complainant, she was also consulted as a content expert and effectively allowed to determine the merit of her own complaint. So that feels very problematic to me, and during my interview, my investigation interview, I asked if this was allowed and was essentially told, yes, this is allowed to happen, which is outrageous. Beyond that, as she made herself the primary complainant, she cut off all communication and support for me, her employee. I thought she would be a support system for me, but has not been, and that feels very disheartening to know that my own dean has not tried to stand beside me or support me in any way through this scenario. I was effectively removed from my classroom, and when I was asked why, I was told that it was actually because of an additional complaint that was made. However, when I asked to receive this complaint in writing, I was told that I would not be allowed to receive the complaint in writing because it was, quote, not formal. However, it was being used to take action against me, and therefore I should have had a right to see the complaint and understand exactly why I was being removed from my classroom and my students. I was given no opportunity for informal resolution, which is a part of the policy for addressing intellectual diversity complaints. When I asked why I was not allowed the option for informal resolution, I was told, quote, per conversations with your dean, informal resolution will not be possible. Yet I was not given any explanation as to why that option was not going to be afforded for my situation. As Joe mentioned, I was denied the right to have any counsel during my investigation meeting, yet no specific policies were cited to me as to why I would not be allowed to have that. I was essentially told, and I think vaguely threatened, that if I were to come to the meeting with counsel, the meeting would be effectively shut down immediately. And then a couple more points. The IU School of Social Work has internal procedures that were agreed upon and voted on for handling SEA 202 complaints. These procedures were completely bypassed. And when I asked about this, I was told that IU university level policies can supersede department policies at any point, yet I was not offered any explanation as to why that decision was made. Because one of the components of our internal procedures is that I should be allowed to have my complaint reviewed by a body of my peers that are deciding on the merit of my complaint, and that was completely bypassed. I was later afforded that option after the investigation was formalized and already underway, and when I asked how that review body would influence the decision, they said, we will take it into consideration. And lastly, throughout this investigation process, I have learned that my dean feels that what I was teaching was not evidence-based or widely used within social work education. First of all, I would like to know how she knows the full scope of what is used in social work education. But even so, I, as an instructor, have academic freedom to present ideas to my students that I feel are meaningful. So regardless of whether or not this information that I used is used widely in social work education, that's neither here nor there. I, as an instructor, should have the ability to bring those ideas into my class. However, it is evidence-based. It's been published in academic journals. It's used widely as a tool for anti-racist and anti-oppressive education by the National Equity Project, by the National Education Association. It is a widely used a teaching tool. Also, I feel that the assumption that the graphic that I used to illustrate white supremacist behaviors, I feel that the assumption that it is not evidence-based is rooted in white supremacist ideology. I feel like it's very much rooted in the assumption that the experiences and the voices of minoritized populations, individuals, communities are not valid. And so I feel like white supremacy is actually on full display in the way that my case has been handled. And so as I look at my situation and reflect on it, I feel that my academic freedom has been stifled. I feel that I have not been treated with care or allowed due process, and I do feel that my students are suffering and their education has been compromised as I have been removed from their classroom for going on 6 weeks now. So that's what I have to share right now. I'm going to pass the baton to my students, but there'll be time for questions later.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. It's lovely to see all the faces in this room. So my name is Chelsea Viatorum, and I am here as a graduate student in the Master's in Social Work program here at Indiana University, Bloomington. I want to share my experiences as a student in the course, Social Work in a Pluralistic Society, formally titled Diversity, Human Rights, and Social Justice, and how the removal of Professor Jessica Adams has impacted my education and, more fundamentally, my trust in IUB as an academic institution. So this all began back on September 29th. According to the syllabus, the topic for that module was gender and sexual identity, an essential component of diverse social work practice. There was no formal lecture that day, and it soon became apparent that the instructor was navigating circumstances that prevented her from teaching freely. For a class designed to teach students to advocate for marginalized communities, this was really alarming. And at the time, I felt confused, but I assumed this was an isolated change. I was wrong. The next week, on October 6th, Professor Adams was absent from class. Instead of our professor, Dr. Hamry introduced herself as a guest lecturer. I immediately sensed that something was wrong. The lack of communication was rather unsettling. It was the beginning of a pattern, one where students were left in the dark in regards to the future of our class. The next day, on October 7th, our class was informed by Professor Adams herself that she had been removed from the course and was unable to speak to us about the course or discuss the reasons for her removal. A bare minimum, there was no email, no official communication, and no plan shared with us from the administration. A bare minimum expectation for when a professor is removed is to have a contingency plan for the course. It was an unfair burden placed on the professor to inform the students, and then an unfair burden placed on the students to have to seek information about the future of the course. Several emails were sent by myself and other members of my cohort, asking critical questions such as, what was the plan for the remainder of the semester? What did this mean for the future content of the course? Each time, the responses were vague. Answers would come soon, maybe 1 week, maybe 2. Students should not have to repeatedly request meetings to simply understand what is happening in their own class. It was not until October 13th, an entire week after our professor's removal, that students received any formal communication. Assistant Dean Nugan Murphy finally visited one of our other classes. And while I understood and respected her emphasis on confidentiality, arriving without any answers only deepened the cohort's frustration. Her remarks were delivered quickly and left us with more questions than answers. It was a missed opportunity to be transparent and underscored the lack of planning that has characterized this entire situation. Later that day, an announcement was posted stating that Dr. Hamry was our point of contact for the course. The administration's first direct intervention did not resolve my concerns. It instead confirmed my growing fear that there was no plan to guide us forward. The removal of our professor without a plan or direct communication has been a devastating loss of trust. I feel as if I've paid for a course without a formal instructor, trapped by the financial and academic costs of withdrawing. The administration's emphasis on confidentiality has, in practice, provided neither transparency nor meaningful support, serving only to deepen my frustration and disappointment. Witnessing a faculty member face these consequences has demonstrated that academic freedom is not assured here, which stands in direct opposition to the values of the National Association of Social Workers and the very principles that this program is supposed to instill in future practitioners. The culmination of this experience was a meeting on October 28th with Dr. Benner, the Dean of the School of Social Work. I attended with an open mind, genuinely hopeful that we would finally receive concrete answers, meaningful reassurance, and most importantly, a clear and actionable plan for the remainder of the course. Instead, the cohort was told that there was no formal plan, no clear timeline for resolution, and no commitment to clear communication. In the absence of these basic assurances, my remaining trust completely vanished. The consequences are clear. I feel like class engagement has dropped dramatically, and students are actively debating their future in this program. So my purpose here is simple. I am advocating for the accountability and communication that we have been denied. To be clear, I am not asking for confidential details. However, students deserve timely and consistent communication to make informed decisions about the education and professional futures that we have invested in. This entire experience has felt like watching our academic house burn down, while the administration assures us that the fire is safely in a fireplace. Again and again, my cohort and I have been told to stay calm, stay focused, and everything is operating as it should. But I'm left asking myself, how are we expected to focus when our house is on fire? This is why I'm speaking. In a profession built on advocacy, silence is complicity.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Zach Harrison. I am another student in the Master's Program of Social Work here at IU Bloomington. I attended here as an IU undergraduate as a history major and was involved in community organizing with the Graduate Coalition, with the History Undergraduate Club, and other internal IU issues that I have seen evolve the university and the community that I hold very dear in my heart. As Chelsea mentioned, we had a 1-week period between October 7th and October 13th in which there was no information given on what was going on with our course. I would like to give more direct context to the ways that the higher administration and their decisions and inaction and resolution and respecting the rights of our professor, Jessica Adams, and due process. We have not had our assignments graded for several weeks. We were told by Dr. Hamry on the first week that she arrived that Jessica was still the professor of record and that the idea of having someone else engage in grading or feedback in any of our material for the last 6.5 weeks would be detrimental to our learning environment and would be unfair, as opposed to actually speaking to that until several weeks after the fact and giving that rationale when the dean came and spoke with us a few weeks ago. It's also a matter of accreditation, which as social workers, the coursework, as our professor Jessica Adams stated, is central in the way that she was teaching it, as we are taking the foundational courses in our first semester in the master's program, and all of it being integral to our eventual further career and to be the best advocates for our clients and for our communities in which we would serve as social workers. The meetings we have had with the assistant dean and dean have been fraught, and despite claiming that she wanted an open dialogue, this was not the case. She, at multiple times during the meeting, questioned the integrity of Jessica, the integrity of the students of this course, and the integrity of the AAUP at IU Bloomington, claiming that she questioned the validity of the information that we had, and she was almost daring us to say where we were getting certain information and that it couldn't possibly be right. She wanted supposedly an open dialogue, but was not interested in not just hearing another perspective. She believed we were bringing forward alternative facts to the discussion, which, as far as we are concerned, is not the actions of someone who believes in the underpinnings of the integrity and value of those working in the social work department, or at, more broadly, the administration, staff, faculty, and students of IU Bloomington. I would also say that the dean, specifically when one of our cohort asked about what the position of her or the master's in social work on free speech, and I'm fairly certain this is an exact quote, "Let me be very clear," she said. "The master's in social work program has no comment on free speech for IU Bloomington at large or for the program." So, no comment on the idea of the integrity of the faculty and staff that are under her purview. No comment on the idea that students are encouraged to speak up. No comment on the fact that this is the Master's in Social Work program and that we are told to, as Chelsea put so succinctly and clearly, of marginalized groups and those being affronted by non-due process and respect and dignity of human life. No comment on the idea that this university was built on the idea of a foundational liberal arts education, as stated by Herman B. Wells and many other IU leaders, including my own parents and grandparents who came here to Indiana University and who promoted the arts, journalism, history, and English, and in many cases helped with some of the educators in our public school system that retired recently are still engaged in supporting those ideas and practices in our public schools across the state of Indiana. I would like to say also more broadly, as someone who has grown up in Bloomington, that I am disgusted and horrified for the other students in our cohort that are new to Indiana and IU Bloomington. This is not the community or the university that I grew up with. There have always been issues, but academic freedom and integrity, a newspaper that has been a beacon for other student newspapers across the country, this is no longer the case and no longer reflective of the values that many in my community and others across this great university it once was, is no longer reflected. But as stated by AUP and student government leaders, we must use that then to speak up. If the president and the board of trustees are not willing to reflect the core values that we have in social work, or the core values of this great university and what it serves in many communities across the state, as the reflects IU Bloomington's procedures, reflects and impacts all other IU branches and other community college and public university institutions in our state and elsewhere. To sum up, our professor Jessica in our minds has done nothing wrong or credible. The process was not following the guidelines. SEA 20 complaint, as has been stated, is a state mandated procedure that requires there to be not just due process, but an open dialogue and a chance for our professor and for the community to speak up and have that be heard. And the idea that, as Jessica put, that the review panel would be put under consideration is another example of this administration giving a cop-out answer and avoiding taking a side to try to avoid taking accountability. We stand together as a cohort, and we hope to stand together on many other issues of other professors and other students that have felt threatened, including members of the Graduate Coalition, other professors who have been suspended without due process, and a overwhelming move from the president of IU and the Board of Trustees towards a business, not academic model. So, thank you very much.
news story that I think will give us a lot of food for thought about what the struggles ahead look like, not in the abstract, but in the concrete, in terms of everyday living with our principles, living according to the truth of our beliefs, and the mission that we're here to really lift up our students and enable them to be well-functioning citizens and professionals. So we have a few minutes for questions. I would like to end, if possible, at noon. But if there's lots of questions, I hope that people can stick around to answer them, and the rest of the speakers are around as well. Floor is open.
Hi, Jessica. I'm Ethan. I'm with WFIU. I'm just curious, kind of technically like where you're at right now. You're removed from teaching this class. Are you on hold? Is there more involved in this investigation? Is there the possibility that you're going to be terminated?
So I am still currently out of my classroom. As the students mentioned, we've been given no clear timeline as to when this might be resolved. They just continue to say we'd like to resolve this as quickly as possible, and then it continues to drag on. I'm sorry, what else did you ask me?
SCA 202 does allow somebody's tenure to be removed. I mean, is this
Yes.
something that's still on the table?
So I am uncertain what the outcome will be. It was mentioned to me that it is likely, because this is my first complaint, that I would only receive a common sanction, but I don't know if that can be guaranteed, especially in the current climate. I do fear that I could be terminated as, an example of some kind. So I'm uncertain what the outcome might be.
I should add that the new post-tenure reviews, the policy, the post-tenure review, which is currently under review, includes something like if somebody has violated an IU policy, they will be deemed unproductive regardless of how wonderful they are in the classroom, how much research they've done, how much research money they've run, how many books it doesn't matter. You violated this, you are unproductive, which stays on your record, and we've asked repeatedly, forever, which means the university can abusively, 2 years in a row, declare you unproductive and potentially fire you. So that's a scenario. We haven't seen unfolding, but we're afraid that is a real possibility, just to kind of give the big picture. David.
Hi, Jessica. I wonder if you could give us a bit more clarity on the content of the exact complaint you received. You mentioned how a student complaint went through a state politician's office, then to your dean, and then the dean took it over and became the official complainant. Have you been provided with the original complaint and the full complainant from your dean? And can you give us some more information on the content of that complaint?
Yes, so the original complaint made by the student, that was only told to me verbally. I did not see that in writing. The complaint lodged by my dean, I did receive a copy of that, and it reflected many of the things that the student said. So to give more information about the content that I presented in class, I used a graphic that is known as the pyramid of white supremacy, and it outlines overt and covert forms of white supremacy. So the only value assigned on the graphic is these behaviors, ideas, and things are considered overt, and that's the top 1/4. And then the bottom 3/4 are all considered to be covert or more socially acceptable forms of white supremacy. And so there are many things outlined on this graphic. There is the concept of color blindness, there's police brutality, redlining, many things mentioned, and they're all just included. Some of the phrases that are also included on the graphic, and it is in quotes, so denoting that we are talking about the phrase specifically, it does say "Make America Great Again." And there's also information on the graph about how the celebration of Columbus Day can also be viewed as a form of white supremacy. So what the student's original complaint was that I verbalized and said that "Make America Great Again" is worse than police violence, and that celebrating Columbus Day is racist and socially unacceptable. And so that was the student's complaint, and then my dean's complaint reflected those things. and also said that I was presenting biased information as fact. Does that answer?
no,
Okay,
thank
yeah.
you. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Kate Sharon with the Indy Star. So I just wanted to ask, like, are you teaching any other classes this semester, and were you also removed from those?
No, I was not removed from those. I'm teaching 3 other courses this semester, and I am still allowed to be teaching those.
And did they cite like any policy or why they removed you from the class? I mean, it sounds like this was just like the lesson of the day, and you'll be moving on to other topics. So I'm curious if like there was anything cited when you were from the course.
So there was no policy cited, and from what I've gathered, instructors, professors on the IU campus that are undergoing SEA 202 investigations are not often removed from their classrooms. They're allowed to remain there while the investigation is ongoing. I was told that I was removed out of, quote, an abundance of caution because an additional complaint was lodged that I did not get to see in writing, but it was used to inform the actions taken against me. And so, yeah, I am still teaching my other courses, but yes, no policy was cited as to why they were removing me.
If I could, if you want to go back and look at the minutes of the Bloomington Faculty Council meeting of, I believe, October 21st, I repeatedly asked Provost Shrivastava, I repeatedly asked Vice Provost Carrie Dockery what policy and procedures were being cited to remove Jessica from teaching, and they absolutely did not answer. We still have not gotten any answer on that. There's no precedent for it. There's nothing in policy and in writing to say that a faculty member can be removed from their course for this kind of charge.
Thank you.
And this goes to a discussion that actually took place at the latest BFC meeting about the relationship between interim measures, right, and sort of long-term measures, right? That it seems that there's now absolutely no daylight between interim and long-term, which means due process is being violated constantly by applying policy in that way. There was some, yeah, Michael.
Is there a process?
Michael Martin, media school.
Is there an appeal process within the school and within the larger administrative governance apparatus of the university that you've referred your case to?
Yes, there is an appeal process. I have been advised to wait until we learn the outcome of my case before I begin the appeal process. But yes, if I receive a sanction of any kind, I will be engaging in an appeal process because I feel even a common sanction is unwarranted in this case, as I was teaching, again, within my discipline and within the scope of the course that I was assigned to teach, so, yeah.
Take it, Jeremy, and then back to Ethan.
Did I hear that Jim Banks had something to do with this? And if so,
Yes.
can someone please tell the audience and the entire community, my 42,000 followers, what Jim Banks has to do with this and everything you know about how this went down and this ended up with you getting sanctioned?
Yeah, so I unfortunately don't know the full extent of how Jim Banks has been involved. What I do know is that a student of mine did reach out to Jim Banks's office to lodge the original complaint, and from there, Jim Banks's office contacted IU and my dean to let them know that this complaint had been filed. We can all speculate as to how much involvement he may or may not have, but I don't know the full scope. That's all that I do know.
Okay, everybody saw the picture last week, right, of Witten and Banks together?
I would add for context that although we may not know the specifics in this case, that Senator Jim Banks and Lieutenant Governor Micah Beckwith has made it very clear that they are not fans of Indiana University or Bloomington, and have the only glowing status that Micah Beckwith or Jim Banks I've ever really heard is the recent trend of football, and what a great football university and community now that we have, which on a personal note I find offensive. And we have seen, not just with SEA 202, both of those elected officials target publicly and privately Indiana University and pushed for the Board of Trustees the few seats that were allowed to be nominated by alumni being removed, we know that Micah Beckwith was directly involved in causing that to be passed by the state legislator earlier.
All right, back to Ethan.
Jeremy took my question.
Okay. One last one. So let's go back there and then we get one last question. Yes.
Hi, thanks. My name is Jeff. I'm in American Studies. I was just looking up the pyramid that you talked about. I was kind of curious. I don't know if this question is something that you can field in this space, but I am curious if there is like a definition of white supremacy that the pyramid graphic uses or ascribes to, or that you were teaching alongside it. Just kind of curious about that. But.
So there is no specific assigned definition of white supremacy for the graphic itself, but what I was teaching was that not only is white supremacy a hierarchy that prioritizes white people and puts them at the top of power structures, but also it is about centering white thought and experience as the normal experience for all for all citizens, for all Americans. And so that's why I felt it necessary. We can talk about a definition of white supremacy, and I think we can understand that, but I felt it important to name very specific ways in which we see white supremacy showing up in our society, because if you can't name it, then you can't address it, So that's why I felt not only do we need to have a shared definition of what we're understanding white supremacy to be, but here are some very clear examples of ways that it shows up. So.
The teacher who always teaches. I love it.
One last question. I've been asking around a lot about how different professors are reacting to SCA 202, and I've really heard like a really wide span of different reactions. But I know that a lot of folks have said like the thought pops into their mind, I could get a complaint over what I'm teaching today. I'm curious, like, what were you thinking? Like, did you think that this is something that was going to put you at risk? I guess, what was your thought process? And I know we talk a lot about the chilling effect, so I'm curious where you look at with that.
So honestly, I thought that because I'm teaching within the social work discipline, and social justice is one of our deeply held values, that teaching a course on social justice, human rights, diversity, equity, and inclusion, that I actually would not be at risk for a complaint, because my assumption was that students that are engaging in the study of social work have an understanding of what our profession's values are, and that those would be shared among students. I understand that there can be a diversity of opinions, but I thought that we would share those values together as people pursuing a social work degree. And so I was very caught off guard to receive a complaint, because, again, I know that the topics I was teaching on are currently considered, quote, divisive, even though they should not be, but they're topics that are essential to our profession, to our values and ethics. And so, my thought was that I think I assumed some false protection from SEA 202 because of my discipline that I was teaching within.
We did get relevance advice from, at least in COAS, like saying, you're okay so long as it's relevant. And it
Yes.
sounds like for you it's very relevant.
So
It's very relevant.
if I could add, the procedures that we passed in the Faculty Senate in the School of Social Work in December of 2024 set up a procedure to dismiss a complaint if it was made anonymously or if the instructor was teaching within the curriculum of the class. If those procedures had been followed, we wouldn't be sitting here today.
Yeah.
Because I have shown this to other social work professors who have said, yeah, there's nothing wrong with teaching that in the classroom. Those procedures were ignored, and they were completely not followed.
And something else to mention, so beyond our very clearly stated values and ethics, the social work profession has grand challenges that we are asking all social workers, nationally, potentially globally, but definitely nationally, to address. And one of those is to eliminate racism. And within that grand challenge, white supremacy is named explicitly and tied to racism, because you can't talk about structural racism in the U.S. without talking about white supremacy. So our profession has literally challenged us as social workers to address this, and that is what I was trying to do within the course. And so I feel like there's no room for attacking my content, because it's very relevant to the study and the course.
All right, last one.
Yeah, and this question ironically.
Ben Robinson.
Ben Robinson, Germanic Studies in the college. This question might be on our journalists, but I'll ask it to the panel and you can throw it back. But it is a question of how many SEA 202 complaints that have been received by IU have been dismissed? And so what percentage of the SEA 202 complaints have led to investigation? And on what grounds did those go forward and the others get dismissed? Does anyone know that?
That's a great question that
We have not received an answer from the Chancellor or Provost. The last time I checked,
I
we're
actually
asking
think
the PSC.
FIU reported on, someone reported on,
50-some in
Yeah, I
the
thought it was-
recent newspaper or magazine,
yeah.
and that was probably put out, 3 weeks ago.
Oh, I think it was in August, even more than that,
Okay.
maybe, that there was a report from IU that, yeah, said 46 were received, and of those, only 9 were investigated, and the remainder were dismissed as being political complaints, with no indication of how the discretion was reached or whether there was any review process for that. So it's an interesting statistic at very least.
How did this complaint become a 202 complaint, an SEA 202 complaint? Because, the student didn't go to Jim Banks and say 202.
I think that was decided on by my dean when she chose to make herself the primary complainant in my case within our IU structures. I think she decided that it was one and that it was necessary to report me, which I feel is, again, very disheartening.
But that's also the lack of transparency. We actually have no idea.
Yeah.
We have no idea how that happened.
Right.
Because we've not been told, and because we've not been part of the process. And this is part of the overall problem with this entire process. It took us 2 weeks just to find out whose procedures were being used. Because IU School of Social Work is based in Indianapolis. Jessica teaches down here at IUP like I do. We had no idea what procedures were being used. And that was one of the things I was asking at faculty council as well. There has been no transparency whatsoever.
And of course, the fig leaf is, the fig leaf is, we protect your confidentiality.
Yeah, right.
That and, $2 will get you a cup of coffee. All right. Thank you, folks. Thanks for being here. You posted through the AAUP newsletter about how this case proceeds because we will be in touch with Jessica. Thank you. Have a cupcake.